saying family,
Yeah.
You cross that and you are family. It's not a matter of, hey, if we get to know you. It's a, no, you crossed the curtain as it was, and you are family.
Mm-hmm. Bienvenue. Welcome to Coffee Talk with King Francois I, where we will discover the tales, trials, and talents of Renaissance Festival performers, merchants, and die-hard attendees as we journey by way of light-hearted and even at times heartwarming conversations about the Renaissance Festival world. I am your host, Theodore Jander, aka King Francois I. Bonjour. Welcome to Coffee Talk with King Francois I, episode 23. I am your host, Theodore Jander. In this Coffee Talk, you will partake in my conversation with Kathleen Whalen, a longtime friend and cast member of the St. Louis Renaissance Festival, as well as the Oklahoma Renaissance Festival. Before jumping into our conversation, some more coffee humor to start things brewing. Does Moses use instant coffee? No, he brews. And to think, I found that on my tablet. Kidding. With that bit of brew-licious humor, grab a cup of your favorite Java, sit back and enjoy this episode of Coffee Talk with King Francois I. It is my pleasure to welcome Kat Whalen from the St. Louis Renaissance Festival is how I came to know her. And she portrays as part of that cast the Princess of Spain, Catherine of Austria. And then she's also involved with the Muskogee Renaissance Festival, portraying Lady Frances of Walsingham, the spy master's daughter. I welcome you, Kat, to the Coffee Talk with King Francois I podcast. Well met to you.
Well met, my friend.
Yes. As coffee is part of this podcast, I do like to start off with a few questions about coffee before we move into our conversation about all things Renaissance festivals. So to begin, if you are a coffee drinker, how do you take your coffee and do you have a favorite roast?
I'm not a coffee drinker. It smells beautiful, but once it hits my palate, it comes not good. So I actually do mint teas.
Perfect. You're the second person I've interviewed, and that's been the response. They're not coffee drinkers, but they do drink tea. And do you, even as a tea drinker then, tell us about a favorite either coffee shop or place that you like to go to have tea or that kind of a setting and where it is located and what makes it your favorite, in this case, tea shop or coffee shop, and what do you like about it?
I actually don't go out to a lot of tea shops.
Okay.
I visit London Tea Room here in St. Louis. It's fun being able to try things a little bit more live, like before you buy them sort of thing. And then online, there's a little maker called Tabletop Teas.
Okay.
And she has a ton of geek-based naming and quality sort of teas. And it just gets interesting.
So it's Tabletop Teas, correct?
Yep. Tabletop is all one word.
So what kind of names for teas when you say geek-based?
So for the supernatural fans, she has Dean, The Lord of the Rings. There's Misty Mountains. And of course, she's got others that are a little bit more standard. I believe there's like element-based ones and different things like that. She's got some standards that are always in, and then she'll also have one-offs of, I tried this. I'm not certain I like it. Tell me what you think.
Nice. And that's all strictly online with that one?
Yeah,
correct.
That's strictly online.
Perfect. So if you could have, in your case, tea with any historical figure, who would you choose and why?
I've bounced between a few people. Lord Burleigh, William Cecil, was Elizabeth I's house manager, basically. And he ran 99% of everything. The only time the queen had to sign stuff is when it had to be the queen. He basically ran everything else. So he would be definitively someone to pick their brain. And then I would also like to have tea with Joanna the Mad. She was actually Catherine of Austria's mother.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
The interesting history with her is she was not supposed to inherit the queenship at all, but through cousins or siblings dying, she got it and that such. And there's actually been a lot of great debates on whether or not she was mad, as it were, because she did get locked up after her husband's death, and her son, Charles V, took over and ruled Spain as a whole entity. He was actually the first ruler to do that. But there's a lot of debate on, was it depression from the death of her husband? Was there bipolar in there and other such things where they just didn't know? So because the character, her daughter, Catherine, is barely noted in history, that's why she can be so much fun to play. I would love to sit down with her mother and see where all the basis came from everything that happened.
Sweet. I like the thoughts of the research or the behind the look at why she would have been considered Joanna the Mad. I think that label was used so quickly in history without really looking at the potential of what kind of, whether it was depression, like you said, bipolar, what are some of these other mental illness things that could have been a thing. So
there's also a debate based on one or two of the accounts of her childhood, where there's a great probability that she was basically tortured as a child.
Whoa.
To be more devout in her religion and stuff like that. And there's a lot there to unpack. And nobody can unpack it now because the records either weren't recorded or were lost.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it would be great just to go back and see what was actually there.
Mm-hmm.
I like my puzzles.
Yeah. Having done a handful of the interviews and this particular question, as far as that historical figure, it is wanting to know not just about them, but their take on the events of the time in which they lived. And for those of us who've been involved with Renaissance festivals, who have portrayed or who portray historical figures, to know their viewpoint on the major events of the time, what it meant to be a part of nobility, of the court, of the monarchy, of the merchant class, of the peasant class.
Yeah. There's a lot in history that is lost because everybody knew.
Mm-hmm. Continuing with the whole Renaissance component that we've touched in, especially regarding the historical figures, what is your favorite Renaissance word and why?
I think it's more the phrase good morrow.
Good morrow?
Yes. Because when you look at it from the current view on language, morrow being tomorrow, it doesn't say have a good day. It says have a good tomorrow. So there's that little sneaky sort of, we'll decide how today goes, but I hope tomorrow's better.
Oh.
At least in my mind.
No, that makes sense though, because you're in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it used as a greeting or is it used as a farewell?
Commonly from current understanding at least, it's used as a greeting.
Okay.
At least throughout the Renaissance fairs. I've not hugely delved into the linguistics of the Renaissance. I'm dyslexic and I have enough issues reading what happened in the Renaissance.
Yeah. Having done the research into the characters that I've portrayed, there are some heavy materials out there to go through and to read through, and they are very informative. And I would imagine then with that added challenge, it can be a lot to try to process through. Well, good morrow. It does add quite a different perspective on that phrase. Like, we're going to see how this day goes, and we do hope that your tomorrow is better. So you may have a fantastic day today, and let's hope that tomorrow is even more fantastic than today. But if today happens to be not so great, let's really hope that tomorrow is, nice.
But I'm not certain if that's how they thought of it in the Renaissance.
Right.
It's how my mind takes it apart anyway.
Okay. But I like it. Like you said, it's a commonly used phrase in the Renaissance festival world. And let's look at what it potentially means instead of just using it. What is the etymology of the word or of the phrase kind of thing? It's like looking at French words, because with the St. Louis Renaissance Festival being a French-based fair, French was the dominant language that the cast would learn, or as far as accent goes, and then learning keywords and phrases. What does it really mean? And where did that verbiage, or how did that verbiage evolve? And it might very well have meant something different 500, 600 years ago compared to what it does now. In our modern vernacular, there are words like that even 50 years ago meant something completely different than what it does now.
Yes, because if you look at our favorite rabbit from childhood, he actually completely, for at least one word, and I forget which one it is at the moment, he completely flipped its meaning. And it's also rabbits liking carrots. Wasn't a thing until bugs.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Was actually perpetuating an inside joke from Clark Gable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now bunnies like carrots.
Huh.
They're not actually great for bunny rabbits, but...
But because of Bugs Bunny, carrots are an identifier for rabbits.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. And it's sort of like Easter eggs. And it's a bunny rabbit that's delivering Easter eggs versus a chicken who actually lays eggs.
Yes.
The ones the kind they're used, but it's a rabbit. Anyway, I'm sure we could go off on a crazy tangent. Yeah, we could. Yes, we could. Moving into more Renaissance festival, Renaissance oriented stuff. Tell me, as well as my listeners, the story about how you fell in love with Renaissance festivals.
So it actually starts back in high school. I grew up in this little town that was minimum 3-4 hours from any festival. They've now got one, Lucky Ducks. But we had a kid come in from a larger city closer to a fair, and he and I got to be friends. And he looked at me one day and said, "You would love to be at a Ren fair," and told me about Renaissance fair. So it always just kind of stuck in the back of my head. Get off to college, start dating this guy, and he goes, "Hey, come up and visit me over Memorial Weekend. I'll have this thing planned." Well, his plan for one of the days was actually the St. Louis Renaissance Fair. So went out there, and it's like, heck yes, this is a ton of fun. And I loved it. That was in the middle of college, and I had some other friends that we'd connected, and I'd mentioned I enjoyed it, and they went, "Yeah, we go up every year." Because college was 2 hours away from the St. Louis Fair for me.
Okay.
And then kept coming up, at least once a season, maybe twice. And ended up, I graduated. I had finished my first professional job, and I was looking at the job market, and it was bust for my field. So I started looking at the next closest area, which was St. Louis.
Okay.
So I got established with a job up here, moved up here. Yes, great. And I went out to meet my friends from college out at the fair. And that's actually a twofold story. That's where I met my husband that day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that is also the point in time where I finally was courageous enough to walk up to somebody in the cast side and go, how do I join?
Cool.
And that was the Spring Festival of 2011.
So 2011, was that your first season, or that was when you decided I want to do this thing? And then the next year, 2012, was then your first year on cast?
Well, 2011, you've got to remember St. Louis still had the Pirate Fest.
Oh, right.
That was the last year for the Pirate Fest. So
Okay.
I joined 2011 Pirate Fest.
Nice. Yeah, that's right.
And then I, of course, re-upped for Ren Fair 2012.
Nice. So what was it about the Renaissance Festival that made you want to join?
Sorry, I have an Alexa.
Oh.
I now have a dead Alexa. So the reason I wanted to join is ever since high school, I'd not been able to do anything theater-wise.
Okay.
Any creative art, really. It just wasn't there. And then on top of it, everybody on cast, well, the predominance of cast at least, looked like they were having fun. Mm-hmm. It was performative. It was fun. And you could tell it was a family. People cared about each other. And having just moved 2 hours from where I was last located, I needed friends. So, oh, look, here's a massive crew of friends doing something on the weekend. Sounds like fun.
Sweet. So it's that environment of, like you said, family, a welcoming environment into that.
A welcoming family, you know.
Yeah.
You cross that and you are family. It's not a matter of, hey, if we get to know you. It's a, no, you crossed the curtain as it was, and you are family.
Mm-hmm. That's been a very common observation, experience through pretty much every conversation I've had. And it was something that was even observed last night. I had attended a former cast. The family itself really had been a part of cast for a very long time. It was a birthday celebration. So I'd attended, and my friend joined me in that. And that was one of her observations at a couple points through the evening, was how welcoming everyone was. And there were a couple of instances where I either went off to grab a drink or grab some food. Mm-hmm. And any of the people that I knew that were there, because there were a few people that I did not know, those that I did know approached her and just started talking with her, and just the energy in that space in the home was very much like the Renaissance Fair energy, that when you're walking into, even though Renaissance festivals occur on huge plots of land, you're welcome home. That's been a driving force, I think, for anybody who has joined, or if they've not necessarily experienced a Renaissance festival before, once they become part of the cast, or they come as a patron, and then even the patrons or the patrons have that same observation, or they've had that same experience. So it's a wonderful testament to the world of Renaissance festivals. It's not just this historical reenactment or a Renaissance themed shopping excursion. It is an opportunity to engage with all sorts of people, and you have the opportunity to dress up and be a character, have fun, enjoy other people watching, food, entertainment, with
everything.
And you throw a little history in there and
a little theater.
Artists. Yeah. Oh yeah.
We had a fun instance this last season out at Oklahoma, the Muskogee Fair.
Mhm.
We had a first-time attendee that throughout the course of the day started as a first-time attendee, and then about halfway through the day asked about, season tickets and friends of festival, and had signed up to be friend of festival for the rest of the run because they had partial runs available. And then at the end of the day, she stopped the cast director and said, "How do I cross the curtain? How do I become cast? Obviously not this season as we're in the middle of run, but how do I join cast next season?" She went from a first-time attendee to I am joining cast next year in the course of a day. And I think that's an absolute testament of when you find your place and your people. Yes.
Yeah. And that welcoming family environment is probably one of the, if not the most significant aspect as to why people join and become a part or even return, especially the regulars. So you've mentioned the St. Louis Renaissance Festival and the Muskogee Renaissance Festival in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
In one or two sentences, describe what you do then as a performer, member of a cast in the Renaissance Festival world.
In the Ren Fair world, I am street cast. I am part of the village that makes you understand that this is not just a shopping excursion. This is not Six Flags. This is a full in-depth, you are in this world. It doesn't matter if your car on the outside of the fair world was the junker that's on its last leg or a Lamborghini fresh off the lot. It doesn't matter in the Ren Fair world. I'm playing that sort of character where everyone is my equal or my better, socially standing wise, and everyone is treated that way. That is the penultimate thing. I have a little bit of knowledge of the entire site, we hope.
Right.
There's a lovely lady in the St. Louis Fair that has been on cast longer than I have, and she still gets lost.
Wow.
So it's directions, it's knowing the ins and outs, it's anything and everything. I'm a villager.
Yeah.
I just happen to wear a corset and hoops.
There you go. You've already answered through your sharing of how you fell in love with Renaissance festivals as far as how long you've been performing. Since 2011, that was Pirate Fest, which is a similar and has come out of that Renaissance festival world. And there are a lot of similarities really between the two. And
most of the time, the difference between the Pirate Fest and the Ren Fest was the date on the program and a little bit of your fashion.
Right. That's true. Having been involved with the St. Louis Pirate Fest, the last one, the garb was different, but all of your merchants, the majority of the entertainers were all the same. They may have a few different pieces or songs that they would have performed, but generally a lot of the music was essentially the same. And then even the merchants may have been dressed a little differently or not, but they were still there selling the same kind of thing. And part of it is when you focus on, as a merchant, that artisan or that craft-based thing, these are crafts that would have potentially been around at the same time, whether it was during the Renaissance or if it was 200 years later, kind of thing.
There's plenty of those crafts where they're essentially the same thing now, like wheeled pottery. It's all the same, except now the kilns are electric.
Okay.
That's the main difference. And you find that in a lot of some of our crafts. Sewing, for example, there's a lot of things that machines can't do, but people still can do. And it's a matter of having a machine versus needle and thread.
Oh, yeah. And those things that are made available for purchase, it's the time that's committed. It's the skill, the years of experience that have gone into learning how to do that, that when you purchase the products that are created, you're purchasing
the knowledge and the art time.
Yeah. And knowing that this product was created out of a love for that particular craft. So there's really a lot of beauty in that, whether it's chainmail to glass blowing to pewter to wooden bowls to socks to hats, all of it. People are doing these things because they love it. And that comes out then in the Renaissance Festival world, whether or not you're a performer, merchant, cast member, patron, and honestly, even if you're behind the scenes, because all of that goes into creating this world for people to come into and have a brilliant time. So you had mentioned a high school friend talking to you about Renaissance festivals, and then your time in college and having attended the St. Louis Renaissance Festival, and now being a part of the St. Louis Renaissance Festival cast, as well as the Muskogee. Did your education in high school and college, or any jobs you may have had during that time before becoming a performer, play a part in your involvement in Renaissance festivals?
Through high school and previous schooling to that, elementary, middle school, I always enjoyed the creative classes the most. Music, theater, band, all of that. And once I hit college, it was definitively known, and still is known, that the bad side to live theater is, unless you are one of the major stars like Hugh Jackman or someone, you're not making money. You're surviving. And that was not the life I wanted. So my second favorite set of classes was chemistry. So I got a chemistry degree. And when I hit college, I lost all the theater. I lost all the music. I lost all the performance. I didn't have time.
Okay.
And finding any place to do that sort of stuff after you're done with college, after you've landed that professional job, it's hard. But in turnabout, as a child, I had been taught to sew. It's just something I did on the side. And I pretty much let it go through college and a little bit after. But when you join the Renaissance Fair, you need garb. And while I was in a professional job, I was not financially stable enough to commission somebody to make my first set, but I knew how to sew. And I started sewing again and kept sewing. And then I found a point in time where the chemistry degree was not getting me any jobs. So it's like, okay, before I look at being a cashier or something like that, let's see what else is out there. Got a few other talents. And I end up spending a year and a half sewing as a living.
Nice.
Yep.
That's brilliant.
Not only did my high school affect getting into theater and the Ren Fair actually kept me afloat for a few years.
You answered the next question perfectly, and that how participating in Renaissance festivals as a performer benefit your job outside of the Ren Fair world, and that sewing skill development and doing that for the Renaissance Festival world made you skilled to have a job doing sewing. That's really brilliant. Thank you. Along the same lines, what is one unexpected way in which you're participating as a performer, cast member of a Renaissance festival, Renaissance festivals, grown or benefited you as a person?
The sewing skill, a little unexpected. It's also helped my mental health a fair amount. I've got friends. I've got really close friends that are, anytime I need anything, call them up. Doesn't matter if I'm in the same state, call them up. So different things like that. So I'm not certain if you knew me well when I started fair at St. Louis, but I've got a fair amount of a temper. And it's actually gotten better as I've stayed in with the Ren Fair and really gotten the close friends that you look at them and go, they're not friends, they're family, straight up. And fair is my baseline.
Nice.
If I need anything, I go to my fair folk first.
That's sweet and fantastic because it just amplifies that family, welcoming, nurturing home space.
Fair's my safe spot.
Yeah, that's huge. I think for a lot of people, and in today's day and time with all of the things that are going on in the world and how aware we are of so much going on too, that to have a place that you can go. And that's something that I remember going into the festival season of 2021, really after things began opening up more after COVID, is that need for familiarity. Even though you weren't 100% sure, there was definitely anxiety about being around that many people. At least that was something that I had experienced. And with some other life things that had occurred 2 years prior, it was that familiarity. It was that something that was a comfortable place. Like you said, it was a safe place. It is a safe place. So to be able to come into that world is great.
Yeah.
I am curious, as this is a Renaissance Festival oriented podcast, who would win in a joust? You or the royal jester, and why?
So it's a split decision depending on who the royal jester is.
Right.
The one at St. Louis is a lovely young lady who has all the enthusiasm in the world. I'm not certain how she is on a horse. And I know those horses.
Nice. So advantage to you, I would say, in that case, probably.
In St. Louis, definitely. So the jester in Muskogee, Oklahoma is, again, a lovely woman, but she scares me. Just her off the wallness and everything like that is not quite my cup of tea, which is a whole nother ball field because you just need to come out and meet her because she's a hoot.
Yeah.
But she would have the advantage in that instance. But again, I know how to ride some and some of that stuff. So I think it might be pretty decent of a fight, but I'm not going to call it one way or the other in Oklahoma. In St. Louis, I win.
Absolutely. Yeah. Horse skills probably play quite a bit. It's always good when it comes
to mud joust.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Those are totally different experiences. Yeah. We'll stick with the ones when it's dry and we know it's
beautiful, balmy 70 degrees.
We want to make sure that we're saddled with the right setting for a joust on horses. So you've shared an experience already of how the Renaissance Festival has impacted you. I mean, having become involved. And I, over 22 years of being involved with the St. Louis Renaissance Festival, I've experienced memorable encounters with patrons, with casts, with guest performers, with merchants, etc. What are some of your other favorite memories that you would like to share with my listeners and me?
I have a favorite from both of my fairs that I'm actively participating in. In St. Louis, we used to have a wishing well near the front gate.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a gentleman who would be the fae of the wishing well, like a wishing fae. It's been a while, but he would see about granting wishes to the little kids that came up to the wishing well of a morning. And one morning, a young gal came up and it was like her second or third time out that season and longtime patron of St. Louis.
Okay.
And her wish was that the queen would remember her. So after that young lady left the wishing well, the fae turned around, grabbed the nearest cast member and said, "Look, that is the girl. Her name is this, and the queen is going to remember her." And it got passed to me, and I was playing a French duchess. So I was able to, of course, approach my French queen. So I approached the queen and went, hey, her name is this. Her wish was for you to remember her. And the queen turns around, looks at me and goes, oh, I remember her. She gave me this bracelet last time she was here.
Oh, wow.
The queen was already wearing her bracelet. Didn't have to run back to get the bracelet out of her box, was already wearing it.
Oh, brilliant.
And that's just one of those things of, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that solidified right then and there why we do the fair. But Muskogee is a different viewpoint. I was guest casting out at Muskogee, and I was hanging out at their tea and hookah bar. They make a lovely mint tea.
Perfect.
So I think this was the second time I was out as guest cast. The drive between where I live and Muskogee is about 6.5 hours. So it's a little difficult to do full time. So I was guest casting 1 week into season sort of thing. A gentleman came up. I just knew him as the steward, and Oklahoma has name tags on all of their cast. And his just like the steward's like, okay. So he comes up as I'm sitting at the tea and hookah bar, sits next to me and goes, so when are you going to join my Ren Fair?
Oh, wow.
That's the owner of the fair.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. In Oklahoma, the steward is the owner of the fair, and he is out every day unless his health doesn't permit it. And it is very rare for him to miss a day. And it just solidified to me, him coming up and going, join my fair, that I actually have the talent for this. It's not just my friends going, yes, you're great. It is somebody who didn't know me from anybody else coming up and going, you are good. I want you as part of my cast.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And for him to be seen as this character, as the steward, which I would imagine allows him the freedom to be able to walk around and see everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, to approach you, what a neat moment, and something that you'll, I imagine, carry with you. So sweet. Mm-hmm. Nice.
But he is out every day of preseason unless he's got something going on. Mm-hmm. And him, his wife, his son, the entire family is there, and it's their pride and joy.
Having talked about sharing good experiences, we do and can often remember some challenges or struggles. So what is one or two struggles that you have experienced over your years in the Renaissance Festival world as a performer, and how did you overcome them?
A number of the struggles and that such, they go back really to my mental health. I know you recognized it in the last few years, but I was stressed out to high heaven. I had a job that was just grating on me. Not only did they basically own me during their hours, but I was always on call. And I couldn't be too far away from the plant and other such things. And the St. Louis Fair was actually on that borderline of being too far from the plant. And a few other things like that, that was grating on me. And we had the leadership changes that were happening in the high level of St. Louis. And then I was leadership on top of it all. And my base personality is not always kind. I do my best, but stress and everything was just piling up. So I was just an absolute witch in the meanest sort of words. But my friend stuck by me. The fair stuck by me. I had people that went, okay, you're overstressed. Let me take this from your plate. Let me take this from your plate. And so my plate, thankfully, has gotten lessened. I've changed jobs, and the stress level is not even a third of what it was.
Oh, nice.
Because it's my time off is my time off.
Mm-hmm.
The only time they're going to call me is if I'm late for work.
Mm-hmm.
They'll text me if the building is burning or if something catastrophic happens.
Right.
Because I'm in quality assurance now. Otherwise, they're not going to bug me on my time off at all. It's glorious.
Yeah, I bet.
And a few other things have worked themselves out. And I just finished my last year as guild leadership.
Right.
So I will still maintain helping out people because at this point, I'm a subject matter expert in certain things. Creating court garb is no joke and other such things like that. But I'm not in charge anymore.
Right.
I show up, I get dressed, I do my thing, I hang with my family.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens. And when you portray someone who's royal, and in your case, having the added pressure as a guild leader to really be able to step back and go, this is only a role that I'm playing. So you don't have the responsibilities that really a princess could potentially have. I can relate in that I've really tried my best to stay out of those leadership roles, because though I portray a king, and that role in itself comes with responsibility.
All of us have responsibility. You don't need another hat in the middle of the day, too.
Yep. And your description of what I gathered from the struggles that you shared and how you overcame them, what really helped you overcome them was that fair family, those friends who were part of that world who were able to help. And that willingness is present. And it's significant, whether you're stressed or not, whether you're celebrating.
Yeah. Family is with you. They'll pick you up when you're down. They'll hoist you up when you're up.
There's that underlying theme. So is there anything else that you want to tell the listeners, but haven't had the chance to do so?
If you cross the curtain once, you'll always see behind the curtain. You'll always see that man behind the curtain. Because no matter what, the festivals don't work without the guy picking up trash, without the person taking tickets at the gate. There is so much support cast that just being an event that opens requires. Once you see it in one event, you'll see it at the other events. It kind of opened my eyes crossing that curtain as to how much support staff actually is there and is required, that you just don't think about it.
That's really brilliant. How eye-opening it is to become a part of the Renaissance Festival world and how it touches lives.
Yeah.
And every life that's involved, whether, like you said, it's from someone who is taking the tickets to picking up trash, who's really behind the scenes and not necessarily visible, working in the off season to lead up to things, or there are events that are going on throughout the day that they're spearheading. They may not be in garb. They might be in garb. And
be dropping garb in the middle of the day in order to get the freedom of the movement to do something. I know in the 2020 season, I ended up dropping garb in the middle of the day because someone had gotten hurt and really needed to get checked out by a doctor. But it wasn't so severe that they needed an ambulance. Someone had to drive them.
Yeah.
So middle of the day, okay, I'm here. I've got my keys. Court dresses don't fit in cars.
Right. That's true. They are as much a part of that family as the performers, as the merchants, as the patrons even. So you learn to not take things for granted. Right. So Kat, for people considering being a vendor, an actor, attending the fair, what is the best piece of advice you can offer?
Wear comfortable shoes and bring your sunscreen.
Perfect.
Getting burnt and twisting an ankle sucks.
That is fantastic advice. As we bring today's coffee talk with King Francois I to a close, at which festival? So this is actually kind of a redundant question because we've already established that, but to solidify that, at which festivals can you be found? And if applicable, where on the internet can folks find you?
On the internet, I have some social media presence, but that is for me and my family.
Fair enough.
For festivals, I do the Oklahoma Festival in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and that is a 6-week run from the first weekend of May or the last weekend of April, depending on how that lands on the calendar, into June. And then I tend to guest cast into Kansas City for a weekend. This year, it might not happen because there's a wedding to attend.
Right.
And then I do the St. Louis Fair, and that is a mid-September to mid-October.
Outstanding. I do want to thank you so very much for taking this time out of your day to chat with me. So, Kat, may the rest of your day and the upcoming week and the performance season that you have with the 2 Renaissance festivals in particular be filled with Renaissance merriment and many blessings to you in your craft as a performer and in life in general.
Thank you very much. And a glorious year to come for you, I would hope.
Thank you very much. I do hope you enjoyed this episode with my guest, Kat Whalen. To hear a bonus story shared by Kat, I invite you to join the wonderful community of listeners supporting the show and making new things possible through Patreon. You can also receive early access every other week to each new episode, as well as receive a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the production and creative process for the podcast. Learn more at www.patreon.com/Coffee Talk with King Francois. The link will be provided in the show notes. Be on the lookout for the next installment to be released on Friday, August 11th, where I bring you my conversation with Malgar Thorvik of Thorvik Crafts, an artisan who specializes in the craft of leatherwork. If you are a performer, merchant, staff, or diehard patron in or of the Renaissance Festival world, and would like to be featured on Coffee Talk with King Francois I, reach out to me by way of clicking on the following link provided in the show notes: www.theodorejander.com/Coffee Talk Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to Coffee Talk with King Francois I. A bientôt. See you soon. Ciao for now and au revoir.